Hello YouTube, welcome back to the Indie Films Filming Gear and Techniques vlog series. I'm Shirish and today I'll be talking about the Blackmagic design micro cinema camera, also known popularly as the BMMCC. The BMMCC is a cinema camera from Blackmagic Design, who are renowned for their cinema cameras that can shoot raw videos. Blackmagic Design has a range of cinema cameras for a range of prices. When I bought the BMMCC in early 2016, it cost me around 1,400 Australian dollars. You can now get it for close to $1,000 because of newer cameras that have come into the market. At that time, the BMMCC was thought to replace the pocket cinema camera from Blackmagic Design, which was extremely popular. Now, the pocket cinema camera, while extremely popular, had a few problems. Like people are not happy about various different things. One thing was the LCD screen, which is not articulating, but small and not very bright, and so on. And the other problem that people had was the very small micro HDMI cable that apparently broke for a lot of people from what I see in the reviews. So at that time when Blackmagic Design released the micro cinema camera, people thought it would probably replace the pocket camera. But Blackmagic Design mainly tried to target this camera to a niche market. As a micro cinema camera that can shoot raw, and it's so tiny, doesn't have a screen, and it can go on a gimbal or something like that on a drone. Now for that purpose, I think this camera is still pretty good, because while you have other types of cameras that can easily go on a drone, smaller cameras like GoPros and other types of action cameras, this camera allowed you to shoot raw. Now it's a micro four thirds mount camera, so you can use any micro four thirds lenses, and if you were to use a very small tiny pancake type lens, then that wouldn't add too much to the weight either. And it runs on the Canon LPE6 type batteries, and one is provided with the camera, but you can buy so many aftermarket batteries, and the battery life was alright, but obviously if you're planning to shoot it on a rig and you want longer lasting batteries, then you have to look for other solutions. Now, because this was meant for that niche market for drones and so on, what they did was, firstly, they did not put any LCD screen at all, so there is no monitoring whatsoever on the camera, which if you're using it on a rig, then you have to have an external monitor connected. The other thing was they provided what they call the expansion port. Now this expansion port is a 15 pin DB15 connector, which is the connectors that is used for VGA cables for computer monitors, but the connections obviously are totally different, and they have the connections mapped out. Now these allowed various different things. Now it does come with a really bulky expansion connector that has got various different connections out on various different cables and connectors, which is very not friendly, but you could always design your own and put it in, is what I have done. Now that is the main reason I bought this camera. Was it was newer than the Pocket, so I thought maybe there would be some improvements. Well, I knew that there was no LCD screen and so on, but being an engineer myself, I was very keen to see what I could do with this expansion port. Now what I've done over here is created this little thing which goes into the expansion port, and it takes the pins that is required for powering it up using the 12-volt power connector over here. Now remember that there is no power connector. They do give an adapter, but it has to go through either their expansion cable or one that you design yourself. So this is to power using a 12-volt supply, or you could also power it from external batteries that can provide 12 volts. And I've created this, which I just required a power, a ground, and two pins. One is for the LANC and one is for S-Bus. The two things that I use to make a remote control myself. Now, after this camera release, people are trying to figure out how to make a remote control, because Blackmagic Design really did not provide much about how the S-Bus worked. Now the S-Bus is a type of protocol designed for drones, for basically RC stuff, because it is used by servo motors in the particular type of servo motors that Futaba creates in RC controllers and drones. But Blackmagic Design did not provide any information on that. So people were just trying out various things. Now I got help from different forums as well myself, and some people created startups to create remote controls for this, but unless you are happy with just getting few controls, then the remote control might or might not be suitable for all your needs. Now, there are buttons over here, right at the front over here. Now, I don't understand why they put it on the front over here. There is a tally light up front, which I can understand because it's supposed to go on a drone so you can see it. But the buttons being up front did not make sense to me, but still. So there is a record button, power button, menu button, but everything, including shutter speed, the aperture value, everything that needs to be set, ISOs, white balance, whatever it is, you have to go to the menu and then go through the menu and change everything. So not just other types of settings, but even simpler settings like that, there is no quick way to do it. Aperture is one thing. If you've got an auto aperture lens and not a manual aperture lens, then you can control using the next and previous or up and down, whatever you want to call it, buttons over here. So that is the only thing that you could quickly control, but still, because the buttons are in such a weird place, it is very difficult. Now, in terms of connections, there is a mic input, there is an SD card slot, and there is the HDMI. Now, what I did therefore was I researched myself, played around with it, and I created my own remote control. So I used a PIC microcontroller. I programmed it, I figured it out. It took me a long time to look at the signals, reverse engineer things, read through forums on what people have already discovered, which was really helpful. Now, this remote control works on S-Bus and LANC. I had to use LANC because I wanted to monitor when it's recording, and the only way that was possible was using LANC. Now, for everything else, I could have just used the S-Bus, but I used both LANC and S-Bus. So I made it into a USB type connector, so it is easily available and I can just connect it up. Now with this remote control, I can finally control everything. So as long as this camera is on my rig, which is how I mostly use it, and I've got the remote control connected so that I can access various different things. I've mapped it to the shutter angle, the aperture, the white balance, and the ISO, and also autofocus, auto exposure, and record stop. So these are the buttons that are there. And I have an external monitor. Now it works. Now I ran into a couple of unique problems with the Blackmagic Design micro cinema camera, which I don't know if any other people have faced. One is that it's got a tripod type mount, a 1/4 inch mount on the top, and on the bottom there are 3 in a row. Now I use it with this cage because it kind of protects it. It allows me to connect various things. It's a pretty neat cage made for this camera by SmallRig. Now on the bottom there are these 2 screws that come with the cage that go onto the 2 out of the 3, the outer ones, 2 out of the 3 tripod mount screw holes in the bottom. Now somehow my camera started just wobbling slightly, very slightly. I don't know whether you can see it, but it wobbles very slightly inside the cage. So I thought maybe it was a loose connection. I tried to tighten the screws and it was fully tight. So then I opened it up and then I realized that the actual mount that is on the camera, inside it's held to the camera body only by like 2 tiny black screws, which are really not good, and they'd come loose. And I tightened it as much as possible without tightening it too much to break anything. I had to open up the camera to do it, and it was good. But after a few days, it again started wobbling. So that is a bit of a problem, but it's a very slight wobble, and like I said, I use it on my rig, so that hasn't been a very big problem. The other problem that I faced, which was a huge problem for me, is that the batteries don't work anymore. Now, what I mean is I can't power this camera on at the moment because it won't come on. Yes, I've got the battery connected. Yes, it is fully charged. Yes, the battery is working. I've tested on my Canon cameras. All my LPE6 batteries are not working. Somehow the connection from the battery into the camera is fused out or something. And I thought, oh, did my camera die? But when I connect the 12-volt power source using an adapter or using some external battery solution, it works. So now my camera is already bulky because apart from not having the screen and having to have a remote control making it already bulky, I also need to connect an external battery source or a power source. So obviously AC power is not a solution when I'm out and about. So what I've done is I've gotten one of those plates for the Sony NP970 batteries, which are huge and they give me quite a bit of recording time. And the mount itself converts it into 12 volts, and then I plug that in over here. So at the end of the day, this camera was fun for me to play around with for remote control and this and that, and to build it into a rig. So it's kind of an idea like the bigger and more expensive cameras, like the Red cameras and all that are used on professional shoots, where you get the camera. Even the Blackmagic designs on Ursa Mini camera and Ursa cameras are similar, where you get a camera and you get various different things to go with it according to your need, and then build up the rig. So for that, this was fun. Now I don't use a drone. Maybe I will in the future, and at that time this camera will come in handy. But apart from that, because of all these kind of issues, this camera has never been my A cam and never been my B cam either. I did do a few shoots with it as A cam, but I prefer to go back to something else, which is Panasonic G7 is my A cam at the moment, or Canon DSLR. Now, what is the main benefit of using the Blackmagic design? Well, it's the raw video. But again, the raw comes with a hefty price in terms of the time you have to invest for the post-production workflow, because the raw is not very easy to edit. So I have actually never used the raw apart from when testing for actual shoots. What I do use is the ProRes, which if not raw is ProRes, and ProRes actually is way better than what I get on the other cameras like mirrorless and DSLR cameras, which are usually MP4 H.264 formats, which are really not production formats. This gives ProRes 3 different qualities of ProRes, which gives a 10-bit log image. So for that reason, this is pretty good. But for vlogs, well, I don't use it. For shoots, if I really need a flat image, then maybe I'll go with this. But otherwise, the other ones have been fine for me. What I'm thinking I will be using this for is a short film where I really need to make sure I get flat image, where I will be grading the footage in post a lot and not just a little bit, which is what I do with my vlogs, because I just get it as flat as possible and well lit as possible, and shoot it using my G7. And I do need a bit of grading, but it'll just be a very quick grading. It has to go as a vlog onto YouTube. So maybe at that time I'll use the ProRes or even RAW, especially if I'm shooting my own short film, which I'm hoping to do soon. I don't know when, but at that time maybe I'll use this. But now there is a better camera available. Because of that, the price for this new has gone to, like I said, about 1,000 Australian dollars from $1,300-1,400 that it was. And for about $1,300-1,400, what you get now is, or probably $1,500, but in that range, what you get now is the Blackmagic design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, which is the new one. So that has got a bigger and better screen that can shoot RAW as well. It's made out to be like a DSLR, so it's familiar to us, probably easy to use, and it can shoot 4K. Now the Micro Cinema doesn't shoot 4K. The studio camera that looks very similar to this that came that was released along with Micro Cinema camera does shoot 4K, but it cannot shoot on camera, so that was no use for me. So I don't know when I'll be shooting my own short film or something like that, where I'll definitely be using this, but by that time maybe I'll already have some money to invest on the Blackmagic Design 4K or even better cameras, so maybe this will never get used. So Blackmagic Design micro cinema camera, it really depends on your needs. So if you should get this camera, you should research what's good about it, what's bad about it, and make sure that this suits your needs. Otherwise, I think it's not meant for everyone else. So my verdict is, well, it is a really good camera for picture quality. You can shoot RAW or ProRes 10-bit, but it needs lots of accessories and expansion, and it's not a very user-friendly camera. If you're a person who shoots on a drone and want to shoot RAW or ProRes or high-quality footage from that, then yes, get this. Otherwise, probably don't spend your money on this. Look out for the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, which I'll hopefully buy soon, and I'll get a review of that as well. So until then, hope you enjoyed this discussion, and stay tuned, subscribe, and we'll be out with more videos soon. Until then, happy filming. See you soon.